You know, we're sorry about what happened, you know, about you having a seizure when we were interrogating you. Sorry. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Riverdale Recap. This is season 3, episode 3. We're about to jump into this episode. We're about a minute away from it airing. I'm recording this a little late today, but that's okay. I was helping my mother with some arts and crafts. And what's more lovely than that? Last week, a lot of stuff went down. One of the biggest things was the parents scene, and all that's to come from that. Really exciting, especially because we know next episode, episode 4, is going to be a flashback episode, so I'm ready to see what we have in store there. Betty and Jughead were out investigating again, and they were trying to figure out the game and what led to Dilton's death, and then Ben ended up going out the window. Evelyn never made her appearance, and we're gonna try and maybe find out this episode and see what exactly is going on with the farm. Of course, there's also Archie and Juvie. His little football game didn't go over too well, so now he is the new Mad Dog, it seems. So I'm excited to see where all these plot lines are gonna go this week. It's time to jump in, and I'll see you guys after the episode. Alright, I have just finished the episode, and that was a wild ride, y'all. So let's start at the beginning. We find out we are a couple weeks later, 3 weeks later in fact, from last week after Ben jumped / fell out the window, depending on how you want to look at it. We open up with Archie, who is in solitary confinement, and I'm very sad watching that because it's really hard to watch all this stuff with juvenile detention, which is essentially a mini prison for children, and distancing it from what I know about the prison industrial system and about the psychology and psychosis of, you know, people in solitary confinement and how badly it messes with them and how much it warps your mental perception. And putting a kid through that for 3 weeks, not having any visitation, anything like that, is horrible, especially when Archie didn't do anything. Like, he didn't deserve this at all. Now, Archie's done some crappy things and he's deserved punishment for, but I don't think this has come up, and it's a lot. It's a lot for me to watch, at least. I have a whole big problem with the Archie plotline. I'm taking this plotline a little too seriously just because of all that, and it's kind of detracting my enjoyment a little bit. So after that scene, we cut to Phallus. We cut to Alice and FP in bed together, and it seems like this has been going on for a little while behind the scenes, which kind of makes some sense because from what we've seen this season, Alice and FP have been together a lot, and it's like, I don't think you guys just called each other almost like, hey, let's go bust our kids about stuff. I don't think that's what happened. I don't think that's what happened. So here we are with that. So they're boning, to put it mildly. I will say I loved that FP has a jelly bean tattoo, especially that we know that Jellybean and Gladys are coming, and I can't wait to see what kind of wrench that's going to throw and everything, because boy is it going to. I don't expect anything to go smoothly with that, but I'm super excited. Slightly awkward that it cut from Alice and FP in bed to then their children in bed together in the bunker, but moving on from that, we keep them separate in our minds, and it makes everything better. So Betty and Jughead are hanging out in the bunker because it's the only place they can just be alone and not deal with any of the buffoonery of the adults. So Bughead's in the bunker, and they start talking about everything. You know, it's totally not creepy that they're hanging out in their dead friend's bunker. Just a little weird, I guess, then. The one thing that I did notice is that they were talking about Gryphons and Gargoyles as a cult, and they've been talking about the farm as a cult, and Betty and Jughead throughout this episode really seem to be making a connection between the two, which makes me think that maybe there isn't a connection, because why would they blow that out so quickly? At least that's my opinion. I absolutely love the next scene of Fred going to talk to the warden and being like, I need to see my son and I'm going to see him today, and if you don't let me see him, I'm calling my lawyer. Fingers crossed that Mary makes an appearance next episode in any way, because I'm really excited for that. I definitely think Fred is being like an awesome dad, and he's really on the trail and knowing something is really wrong here, and I feel like if Fred knew what was happening to his son, he would be absolutely heartbroken. Then we get a cute little scene of Betty and Veronica, and, you know, I really enjoyed seeing that this episode because, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of it. But it's really, really good to see Betty supporting Veronica, because I think that's what Veronica really needs right now. And I think it's great that all her friends have been, like, rallying around her. I really like that. I really like that they're supporting her and helping her. And I also am really enjoying the Speakeasy so far. It's a fun theme, so that's one of the awesome things about it. And one thing that Riverdale is really, really, really great at is visuals. Their visuals and episodes are amazing, and their sets and everything, like, they really know how to, like, immerse you and make you, like, feel and see that scene, and that's one of the really, really great things. And I think the Speakeasy kind of lends to that. I really did like Betty being like, Veronica, you need to take care of yourself, you need to do this for you. Just stop worrying about Archie for a little bit, because he wouldn't want you to be. And I thought that was really cute. So more about the Speakeasy, which I love, is that she's really getting everyone involved in all the side characters, and I'm so excited about that. Like I've been saying all so far this season. Kevin and Josie show up together, and Veronica asks them to be her songstress and her MC, and I think it's a perfect combination. It's a perfect way to get music in here, especially since apparently the Pussycats are no more and it is only Josie, which is a departure. But there's a lot of other good comic stuff happening in this episode that we'll get into a little more later. Now, I was really excited about this because I'm ready for more music that's not Jailhouse Rock, because that was a little bit cringy. That was something we'll be like, okay, maybe don't do that again. But having the music in the club and being, you know, diegetic, I think works really, really well. Does anyone know the significance of the code being 642? Maybe it's one of the characters' birthdays. Does it stand for anything? Let me guys know if you know the answer or what you think. Tell me down below. So not only are just Josie and Kevin involved, we also have Reggie there. And if you guys know, you know I enjoy me some Reggie, and Reggie has been really great so far this season. And I've liked that they've just been including him in things. And I think him as kind of Veronica's bouncer slash partner slash semi-confidant in this is kind of really awesome, and allows Reggie to grow as a character, because while Reggie can be a jerk, I firmly believe that Reggie has a heart of gold underneath. Because I don't know any French, I had to look up what Le Bon Nuit means, and it means a good night, or the good night in French. Oh, I'm also looking forward to Kevin singing, because he is the brother of Corey Cott, Broadway legends. We stan. By the way, Reggie was looking fine this episode, and that was one thing I did get to enjoy, because I did not get to enjoy the other gratuitous shirtless scenes. Of course, because nothing can be easy in Riverdale, Penny Peabody shows up to throw a kink in everything and ruin Veronica's day. Now, the first thing I saw was this is Hiram. Hiram is sending Penny to be a nuisance to him. Especially what, you know, kind of tipped me off to that is, while the Ghoulies are a gang, they're under Hiram's thumb, and making people pay for protection, you know, has been a mob thing in the past, and I guess it is a gang thing too. But I guess I associate it more with mobs, which made me, I guess I associate it more with mobs, which made me immediately go to Hiram, which seems to be the correct response here, because apparently everything in this town, everything that's bad, links to Hiram, except maybe Gryphons and Gargoyles, and that's because it seems to be some sort of supernatural shenanigans. So back to the Archie plot, my many problems with it, and that stems from the fact that it is gross manipulation of teenagers by adults, and that they're forcing them to do things that are dangerous and gross, and I hate it. I hate it, guys. You're gonna, for as long as this plot goes on, you're gonna have to hear me talk about it. The warden apparently tapped Joaquin in because Archie didn't want to do it, and because Archie semi-knew Joaquin, apparently that was the way to his heart. And Archie, being the guy that he is, can't just watch someone else be beat up. He's like, no, I can't let this happen. I gotta do it myself, because I guess Archie feels like he can take care of himself, and I guess he feels like other people can't take care of himself, or that their force is too big for them to be able to protect themselves, and Archie has to protect them, which shows the good heart he has underneath everything. The one thing I also did find interesting about the warden's team is that Two of the people are named Thumper and Peter, and those are also names of popular fictional rabbits. Thumper from Bambi, and then Peter as in Peter Rabbit from the popular book. I don't know if that was intended, but I find it kind of funny. And then the other kid was just Baby Teeth. Baby Teeth, Mad Dog, Fangs, Sweet Pea, Jughead. Nobody has a normal name in this town. But we eventually get back to Bughead, and Bughead's like, we gotta keep investigating, we gotta go on more, we can't just drop this, they're never gonna drop it. We should have learned by now. This is not going to be dropped at all. They see Evelyn and Ethel hanging out together, and they're like, nope, no thank you. Because Betty finds Evelyn super creepy, and I agree with her sentiment. And then Ethel is also super creepy, so maybe it kind of works that they're BFFs. And if they are a super villain duo, I might be here for it. That could be kind of interesting. I'm down for that. Go to talk to Ethel again, and, you know, they just start asking her questions, and I'm like, wow. But they do eventually say, you know, hey, you know, we're sorry about what happened, you know, about you having a seizure when we were interrogating you, sorry. Sort of. But Ethel's saying she's been having multiple seizures since, that she's on medicine, and Evelyn's essentially trying to be her BFF and wants to get her off the medication, which I find kind of strange. Now, I don't know what the farm has against medicine, if it's because they feel like, because they're supposed to be holistic and everything like that, or if it's some kind of way of them having control over people, because if they're not taking their medication, perhaps they're more susceptible, they're weaker for the farm to prey on, which is disgusting. But one of the things we get out of this scene is that Jughead decides to play the game, and Betty's gonna go down the Evelyn Ever Never route to try and figure out what is happening. They keep referring to the playbook for Gryphons and Gargoyles, that's a scripture, which I find really creepy. Just a side note. So Veronica then proceeds to encounter more speed bumps, because a whole slew of jingle jangle was just thrown into her arms, and she's like, I don't want this, I don't want this. And then of course, guess who shows up to do a random inspection? It's Sheriff Minetta, everybody's least favorite sheriff, because we all love Sheriff Keller, part of the Hot Dad crew. Bring that back, because they were doing good things. Sheriff Minetta wants to shake her down for money too. Pretty suspicious, huh, considering both of them work for Hiram? Yes, because of course, it's all Hiram. Everything is Hiram. So Betty decides to go to the farm meeting. She decides, you know what? I'm gonna investigate. And she sort of starts to play Evelyn like a fiddle. She's like, I've still been having these seizures, you know, I'm really ready to embrace the farm, blah, 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 blah. Of course, she doesn't eat the pizza because she doesn't know what the hell it's laced with, and good girl Betty for that. But Evelyn is like, you should come to her meeting then. And Betty's like, oh, I can meet Edgar? I can meet your dad? Because they are building up to him. Because it is episode 3 and we have not seen even a glimpse of him yet. So it's really kind of interesting how much they're building him up, and if he's going to live up to that hype, or if he's just going to be something completely different, or if he really is something nefarious. But I guess that's kind of the point. Then we get Archie's first time in the pit, in the fighting ring that he is forced to be in and not of his own free will. And Archie is not playing any games. You know, this guy comes at him and he's like, 1, 2, boom. Dodge, dodge. The guy's on the ground and everyone's like, oh, but I wanted to see the teenagers beat themselves up more. That was some buffoonery. And then Warden has the nerve to go up to him later and be like, you have to sate the bloodlust. You have to make sure they're entertained. And then I, of course, naturally thought of Gladiator. Are you not entertained? So now is going to be the little Tony sidebar of the episode. Cheryl and Tony are fantastic. They don't have a main plot really this episode. They're just, you know, supporting. They have to do with the Speakeasy. Veronica first enlists them to kind of spread the news and get people talking about the Speakeasy. And in return, she's going to give them no cover fee and free drinks all night, which is a pretty sweet deal, I think. And then Veronica enlists them again, and the level of extraness of the two of them, the first time she meets them, they're all like curled up on a couch, like half in each other's lap at school, and now it's like a full-on photo shoot where Cheryl's literally like sitting in a throne, and like Tony's just like, yes, yes, work that camera. They live a like fabulous lesbian life, and I'm here for it. But one of the things they figure out is that essentially the ghoulies have created a jingle jangle lab in the basement of the White Worm, and Tony knows the secret passageway to get in there. So they go in, they take pictures, and voila! You've got blackmail. So naturally, Veronica uses this to be like, hey Dad, stop shaking me down. This is done. I am done. Stop sending your little goons on me and give me $10,000 a month. Thanks. Oh my god. Also, of course, I have to mention that there was the song with the lyrics about Jingle Jangle in that scene, and whoever is doing the music on this show, you get a gold star for choosing that, because that was, ooh, that was, it was peak. It was peak Riverdale, y'all. Then we get back to Betty and Jughead investigating separately. Jughead starts on his, mission, his game with Princess Etheline. But Betty first is going through with the farm. Evelyn just happens to be at her house. There's all these cars, and it's the first meeting of the farm. And of course, Edgar is not there. I was like, Betty, I was like, what is this? So what we find out through this meeting is that they tell each other everything, every bad thing they've ever done. And this is when I started getting really, really upset about Alice, because I really do love Alice and I consider her one of my favorite characters, but this episode I really, really did not like her or anything she was doing, besides maybe the stuff with FP, but that was so minuscule, I can't even be that happy about it. We find out that she told them about essentially the man she killed, and that Betty helped her cover up, and that puts her in such danger. If the farm is knowing these things, if she decides to walk away, why would they let her? They know all this stuff about her. They could say, oh, well, you told us this. Why wouldn't we go to the police and tell them to keep her in there? Like, they've, like, brainwashed her. Or they've, like, brainwashed her to the point where she thinks she can just tell them these things and there's no consequences. And I was so upset about that. I was, like, I felt like Betty. I was like, why would you tell them? I don't blame Betty for being that upset and getting up and yelling and being like upset about it, because like any normal other person would come out and be like, this is not okay, it's not okay. But there was something at the end where Betty, it seemed like her world was spinning, and to me, I didn't take it as a symptom of another seizure. My thought was maybe it could be, because she went to go upstairs to be alone, maybe like a panic attack or something like that. Let me know what you guys think happened with Betty at that point. So we get into Jughead's game, and Ethel asks him to choose his kind of role. This is very, very Dungeons and Dragons-like. Naturally, Jughead decides to choose a Hellcatcher. So they start going through this game, they're going through pathways, choices, all that kind of stuff, and she takes him to a door. He chooses which one, and then she reveals 2 chalices, and he has to pick which one to drink. He's like, no, these are probably poisoned, but he eventually picks one, and he picks the one that's not poisoned. Thank God, because that would have been crazy. He drinks it, she's like, do you trust me? What I could see developing, that Ethel was essentially trying to replace Ben, and she was placing her affections onto Jughead. And that crush for Jughead is developing. And if you've ever read the comics, you will know that one thing is that Ethel has an absolutely huge, huge, huge crush on Jughead. So it was kind of interesting to see them bring that in this aspect, especially because Ethel is kind of like insane. Jughead wants to see the book, and his condition on drinking the chalice is seeing the playbook. And he gets it. He drinks it. She's like, okay, I'll give it to you, but only for a kiss. And Jughead was so over it. Jughead was really over it, and he just gets up, he's like, okay, fine, whatever, kisses her, gets the book, and is like, alright, bye. Before he can leave, Ethel decides to drink the other chalice and try and kill herself. Jughead's not having any of it. He gets her to the hospital, thank God. So when we cut back to that, Ethel's in the hospital, she's on suicide watch. Now one of the interesting things though before she leaves is that Ethel's talking about spreading his gospel. And it really is like a cult, like spreading gospel, like this player book is like a scripture. It's too much for me. One of the cute things Archie saw before his next fight was the kind of vision of his dad talking to him, and I thought that was such a sweet scene. And I really think it was something Archie needed. Archie really could use his dad right now, and we know that Fred is fighting for him on the outside, and I just hope that Fred gets him out before they try and break out, because that'll only cause more problems later. Now this pissed me off even more with Alice. Betty's getting ready to go to the Speakeasy, and Alice comes in, and they're talking, and, you know, Betty rightfully is kind of chewing her out again, and Alice is just like, I trust them more than I trust you. Because Betty just wants to know what's happening. What's going on with, you know, what's going on with Gryphons and Gargoyles. And maybe if she had just talked about that with her daughter, maybe everything wouldn't be going as crazy as it is. So the Speakeasy opens, and it is very, very grand, and we get inside, and Cheryl and Tony are congratulating Veronica, and Betty and Jughead come in. Everyone there is having a great time so far, and Betty and Jughead are kind of talking about what happened, and it seems like Betty fully knows about what happened with the game, and it seems like that kind of thing is coming to the end, though Betty and Jughead want to know more. Then, of course, Hiram decides to show up and bring the big picture of Veronica to this club. Is she going to put a picture of herself in the club? Maybe, maybe not. Remains to be seen. But Hiram is kind of proud of her, because while she's taking a stand and trying to be a legitimate, her own person and be separate from her dad, I feel like this is also kind of making her like him in a way, and I think that's what Hiram feels like is happening potentially, is that she's following in his footsteps, which might be a plot point later this season, because I could see it really going either way, because as resistant as Veronica is being to her dad, she's also kind of falling into like starting a business and all that stuff, and you know, she just blackmailed her father to kind of be legitimate, and maybe that wasn't right, or maybe it was, but you know, she's obviously learned some tactics from him. Now, I want to shout out for the Speakeasy, the performance. Josie sounded amazing. The song they chose to do was Anything Goes from the Broadway musical Anything Goes, which I was super excited to hear. I was like, Broadway on my TV, yes! Jazzy. But I think they did a really awesome arrangement of this song. It was very like jazzy, very fitting for Veronica's kind of 20s Speakeasy theme. Very mysterious, and then it was intercut with Archie's fight, and I feel like that worked really, really, really well, cutting between those two things. So bravo to the editors, bravo to the song choices, bravo on this episode. Now when we get back from the Speakeasy, Jughead goes back to his chair with Betty, probably to go over the book, and of course Alice and FP are there again, always mysteriously together. And they basically are chewing them out, saying this game is evil, you shouldn't be playing this, and Betty and Jughead are like, what are you doing? They just want to know. They just want to know. And FP, for some reason there's already a fire outside and they just throw it in there, which is kind of convenient, also kind of not. Betty and Jughead are very upset, and I feel like if they had just told these kids, here's what happened with this game, don't play it, don't touch it, don't get involved, leave it. Leave it and let it die. Maybe then not every kid in school would have a player's book in their locker and be involved with the game. Which somehow Ethel did, but I also don't think Ethel could do that when she was literally in the hospital. So who else is in on the game? Was it the Gargoyle King that went in and put these in every single person's locker in Riverdale High? Or is it some sort of other people playing the game, some sort of accolades? Is it the farm? Was it Evelyn Evernever? When will these questions be answered? So that was pretty much it for this episode of Riverdale. A lot happened, but overall I think it was a very solid episode. Once again, season 3 has been pretty great so far, and I hope this trend continues. Next week we are getting the parents flashback episode, which is super exciting. It looks like that there was a lot of different entanglements, and I'm kind of excited to see how crazy it's gonna go. Is it going to be over the span of one day, or is it going to go further? Because they mentioned that they're at Saturday detention. Hello, Breakfast Club plotline. If there is no Molly Ringwald involved, I am going to be upset. How are you going to have a Breakfast Club homage without Molly Ringwald, who is part of your show? As we know, the kids are playing the adults in this episode, and I think they've, so far from what I've seen, done a really, really, really great job of making them look like their parent counterparts as teenagers, especially because a lot of them did acting when they were younger, so they kind of have references to go off of, which is really great. So let me know down below what you guys thought of this episode. Tell me any theories you have going forward about who the Gargoyle King is. I hope you all have a great day, a great night, a great evening, and peace.